Welcome back to the Force with Friends podcast. Today we are tier ranking all of the Star Wars movies except the Clone Wars. So Kevin, welcome back. We're kind of finally done going through the Skywalker saga. Does it feel good to be done with it?
It does. It was fun. I feel like we got a lot out of it, but it towards the end there, I was ready to move on to something else. So
yeah, I think if we had ended it if we had just done it 1 through 6, it would have felt even better. Going into the sequels, which we enjoyed a lot of the sequels, but it took a lot out of us, I think, to maybe spin that. So
yeah, it was more searching for things than we enjoyed. So
yeah, so today we're going to be doing a tier ranking, and I've watched everybody doing all of these over the past few months, and I thought it would be fun for us to do it as well. So we are going to hop in here if it'll pick up my screen. And so, yeah, we have got the S, then A, B, C, and D. Brought to you by Progressive Direct, as you can see all of our all the advertisements. No, so I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably already know what the tier rankings are. But S is going to be like the best thing we've ever seen when it comes to Star Wars. A is going to be great. B is, good, average. C is below average. And D is not good at all. That's how we're going to be going through this. So we're going to take it chronologically, episodes 1 through 9, kind of just what we broke down over the last couple months. Kevin, just for our preferences, are we gonna say ranking it based on how we just watched it, or are we just gonna say hey, turning it on just to watch one movie? How do you think we should do it?
Yeah, let's I feel like that's fair. Let's, as an individual movie, just the enjoyment factor of watching it.
That's good, because that would change.
I think that's fair.
Some of our stuff. So
yeah, it would.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's hop in with episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's been a while since I've watched this one now. That was probably November or something.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my head, I would give this a B. What are you thinking?
See, I had it at an A.
Okay.
Yeah, I really
sell me on it.
And I think we talked about this when you and I watched it. I really like The Phantom Menace. I think it's a great start to that prequel trilogy. I think some of the characters we get, I love Qui-Gon Jinn, Duel of the Fates. The reason it's not the best is some of that dialogue gets me every time. It's just bad. But I think you and I disagree on the pod race, though. I love the pod race. Okay. I know that's like one of those boring moments in Star Wars for you.
It's rough.
But there's not much in that movie that I don't like just sitting and watching. So I had it at an A, but it's the dialogue, man. The dialogue gets me. It's bad in some places.
I'll give it an A. I can look past that. Plus, having finished the Plagueis novel within the past month or so, I'm okay with it being an A. It adds a little bit to it. I think that duel at the end, Duel of the Fates, I think that's like the number 2 Star Wars duel, if I had to guess. And for me, it's my number 2. For some people, it's their number 1. So I think that alone gets it pretty high up there.
I think it is number 1 for me. I mean, obviously, it's right there with Obi-Wan and Anakin, but I don't know. Something about just still remembering that thing on the big screen. I love that. I love that battle. So
see, I didn't see it on the big screen, but I did see episode 3 on the big screen. So that was
life-changing.
Maybe where we differ. So yeah, we're going to say episode 1 is great, but not the best Star Wars we've ever seen. How about Attack of the Clones? You go first on Attack of the Clones.
We might differ on this one. I got it down at a B. It's not. I like the story in Attack of the Clones, but in terms of just sitting down and enjoying this movie, some of those moments with Padme and Anakin are so painful.
Yeah.
It just, anytime like that middle part of the movie where it's not Obi-Wan and Kamino, I'm just like, oh gosh, can we move on, please? So I
Yeah.
like Attack of the Clones. The story's great. No issues with the story. But man, it's hard for me to sit through Anakin Padme. I don't even know if I call it romance. It's more like stalking, and I don't know. It's creepy. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, so I'm between a C and a B on episode 2
Okay.
for a couple reasons. One, Obi-Wan's entire arc in
Love it.
this movie is incredible. It
Yes,
is
I love it.
so good. Like
Yeah.
it is the whole like mystery spy type thing. You get so much lore, like the clones, how they came to be. You
Yeah.
get Dooku telling him that a Sith Lord is running everything, pulling all the strings. And so I do like that. And he goes to a Waffle House at some point. So that's also pretty cool.
Yeah. Good old Dex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
that's what sells the movie for me. It's that whole segment
yeah.
with Camino and the clones and Jango Fett and Obi-Wan. Like I love all of that part of the movie. And it has a cool ending too when the clones show up and we have the start of the Clone Wars. I
Mhm.
love all that.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna say
man,
once you get to the Battle of Geonosis, it's really good too. So
yeah.
let's give this one a B. Let's do that.
Hmm. I'm
I
talking
think
you
you
up on all
can.
of these so far.
Well, I mean, if I can throw out the cringy stuff, then
So
the rest
cringy.
of it's not too bad. Now, for episode 3, I'm gonna say that's S tier. I think that's a pretty easy choice for me, and being some of the top Star Wars that we have. What do you think?
Oh, I agree 100%. I think it fixes some of that bad dialogue. But man, we talked about it a few weeks back, just how great Anakin's fall is, just the little things that continuously pull him away and push him away from the
Yeah.
Jedi. It's a really well paced movie.
Hmm.
When there's not something exciting going on, there's something really interesting going on, and so no,
Yes.
it's got to be up there at the top. Everything about it I love. I don't ever sit down and just like zone out in any part of that movie.
No, I agree 100%. Like, there's no room for there to be anything inconsequential to happen in
Mm-mm.
episode 3 because it has to wrap everything up and shoot us into the originals, which it does
Yeah.
so well. I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
like and it has that same Empire feel like we talked about, to where nothing good happens as far as the good guys go, but at the
Yeah.
end, knowing what's coming, there is that hope. Also, if you look at this, it probably is like the correct ranking for what most people would rank the prequel trilogy, anyways, with Revenge of the Sith being the best, then The Phantom Menace, then Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. I think
So I think,
everybody's
yeah.
got Sith at the top. I think the other two get switched around a little bit, but I think most people have that one at the top for sure.
The only reason I would consider 2 above 1 or on the same
Hmm.
level with 1 even would only be the fact that I saw it in theaters. Like, it was my first Star Wars movie in
Yeah.
theaters, so like the nostalgia aspect. But that would probably be the only thing that got it up there for me.
Yeah, and
So,
that'll be different for everybody, right? Like where
oh
we
yeah.
all saw things and how we saw them and how we were introduced to things. Like those always, as much as you try to be objective, like you can't remove those parts of your experience. So
As far as like single viewing experience as well, um I never just throw on Attack of the Clones. So,
that's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So next, chronologically, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on this one. I don't care for Solo. For me, it's a it's probably a C for me, only because it's a story that I didn't need. Like, I don't need a
Hmm.
young Han Solo. I don't need to see Han without Leia. I don't need to see these characters like Beckett, who it's cool to see in
Yeah,
Star Wars, and Kiara. Like,
yeah.
I didn't need any of that, right? Like, in the midst of all this other stuff going on, I don't know. It's the only Star Wars movie I did not see right when it came out. What that I went and watched. We saw it like 3 weeks
Huh.
later. I managed to
Yeah.
not even be spoiled because enough people weren't even like talking about it for it to get out there. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I used to be a D. I think I'll give it a C now. I originally given it a D because I had read the Han Solo trilogy novels from the previous EU,
Oh,
the Legends, and they were great. They did
okay.
such a good job of fleshing out his character, making him make sense in the original trilogy, like
Hmm.
just in terms of who he is and why he is who he is. They were so good. I loved them. I'm curious as to if other people feel that way about those books, that trilogy, but I loved it. And so when they when they came in and like, oh, we're just going to do our own thing, we're not going to pull anything from that, it was disappointing
Hmm.
to me, because this one doesn't feel very connected to anything. It really, really feels like just kind of this standalone movie that, aside from names and likenesses, I don't know, it doesn't click with the rest of the movies in my mind. So I'll give it a C now,
No.
because I mean, it's got some fun segments in it, but originally I was pretty disappointed just because in my head I had that, how great that trilogy of books was.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, and it came out 6 months after The Last Jedi. Didn't do it any favors
Holy
either,
cow! Did it really?
probably.
Was it? I didn't
Yeah.
remember that it was that quick of a turnaround.
Well, 6 months after The Last Jedi, and also within 30 days of Infinity War or something, or Endgame or something like that. So it was like
Yeah,
horrible timing. And
yeah, that's
and
fair.
Disney made both of those movies, so
Yeah,
I don't get it. But yeah, I think C is fair. Rogue
there's some
One
fun
though.
moments in it, but
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Now Rogue One for me, Rogue One is A all the way.
yeah, I'm curious because my mind, I'm thinking S. So where are you that
Okay.
doesn't let it cross that threshold?
Just the mainly the fact that it's not exactly a Skywalker story. Um as far like as
Fair.
everything else goes, I mean, it's Ashley's favorite Star Wars movie. So, and I think it, as far as movies go, it may be very well the best one, but it's just not, it's not the same story. It's a line from the Star Wars story that they made into a movie. So that would be the only thing that kept it A for me.
Hmm. Okay, that's fair. I could give it an A. I think for me, I would personally put it at S, just because I loved that they took a step back from
Uh-huh.
all these characters and just kind of this legendary aspect of Star Wars, and said, "Hey, we're gonna focus on all the people that are always dying in the background of these movies, right?"
Uh-huh.
So I love that. I think it was a cool way to step away from these characters and do it in something that we all already had some perspective on, right? These plans for this Death
Yeah.
Star. Um, and I always loved, going back again to the books, like the X-wing books that were just about a bunch of rando guys who weren't Luke
Yeah.
Skywalker and weren't Han Solo. I fell in love with kind of that side of Star Wars that was just everybody else. So for me, Rogue One brought that in. So I think that's a personal S for me, but I think it's a firm A in terms of just fitting in with the rest of the Star Wars. I'll give you that one. So
That's, I mean, that's fair. Um, it pains me too to say S instead of A, just after you say all that, or A instead of S, because if you're just throwing it on to watch it, it's probably like the most easily watchable Star Wars movie too. But
oh yeah, it is for sure. Hey,
we'll go A.
hey, yeah, let's go A.
All right. So now the original trilogy, I know what I have in mind for all three. I'm gonna say A New Hope is A tier, only because it's a little slow. That would
Hmm.
be the only thing that keeps it for me. Like the lightsaber battle, not overly exciting. There's a lot of like when you're starting a story, there's a lot of story to build. And
Yeah,
then like the ending is incredible, but getting there to me takes a little while. I still love it. I would still say it's an incredible movie, just not the greatest of Star Wars movies.
yeah, I'm good with that. I think that's fair because I mean, as you get into the movie, you really get sucked into the characters and the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where it really picks up, is once this group comes together, right? Like you're kind of buying into it. You find it interesting. Oh, we're running into this guy Han Solo. We're flying, and then once they get to the Death Star, I think that's where it becomes its movie. Um, It wants that group, that core that will be the rest of the trilogy gets together. But leading up to that, it is a lot of getting you to buy in, getting this story in place, getting these characters in place. So I get that. I mean, it does take a minute to get to its I guess the best part of it. So I'm good with A.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Now, Empire, that's S all the way for me. I mean, it's one of the greatest movies of all time, probably, as far as what people know.
Yeah.
So, would you agree there?
I have no disagreement there at all. I think it takes everything A New Hope did well and builds on it, builds on the characters, builds on the conflict, builds on the emotional side of things, and so yeah, I don't see how you cannot put it up there. I mean, if someone does, hey, that's you're free to feel that way. But man,
you ever met anybody that doesn't like Empire?
I don't think I have. No, I mean, I've met people who it's not their top favorite movie, but it's one of their top favorite movies. You know, I don't know anybody that it's not up there within that group. So I'd like to talk to somebody who doesn't like it and find out why.
I've never heard anybody say I hate Empire. You know, like people say I hate The Last Jedi, but no one says I hate Empire, which I mean, you could probably go any generation of person that's like 10 years old and up and say, you know, no, I'm your father, or the incorrect version, Luke, I'm your father. And they know exactly what you're talking about.
That's true.
So it's like everyone in the world knowing what Coca-Cola is. Like, it's good. People know about it. So yeah, I think that's easy. It used to be my favorite Star Wars movie until about a month ago.
Oh yeah, that's right. We talked about that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and,
if this somehow in this large world, in this crazy internet, makes it to somebody who does not like Empire, please, I just want to know why. Like, I'm just curious as to, because I've never met anyone that doesn't like it. I just want to know why. I'm just curious. So
if we find the Empire Strikes Back hater, we may have them on a podcast just to discuss it.
Yeah.
I went ahead and put Return of the Jedi S tier. That's my new favorite Star Wars movie. I think it's been yours from what we discussed.
Oh yeah.
It closes out Star Wars so well. Had Star Wars just ended there, would have been the perfect bow on top of it.
Yeah.
It ties up everybody's story and everybody's story. There's no loose ends as far as I'm concerned. And so not all intellectual properties can land the plane very well. Star Wars, George Lucas' Star Wars landed the plane very well. The plane did not land very well on Star Wars' second turn at ending the franchise. So I think it really makes you appreciate it even more looking back at it through that lens.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And one of the great things about it is like none of these great arcs that are closed out are cheap. Like, all these characters and the way things end for them, they're all very much earned through the conflict and through their growth. And we see it from really episode 4 to episode 6. Like, you can carry through these storylines and like nothing feels off. They carry over so well. And so, yeah, Return of the Jedi just topped everything off. So great. It had that great emotional ending. Really solidified who Luke Skywalker is. And I mean, the ending itself is some of the best of Star Wars, right? Between that space battle, the throne room battle, the Ewoks on Endor, like that whole last third of that movie is just fantastic.
And it's kind of the blueprint for all successful Star Wars battles going forward. This one here, where you got the land, air, and lightsaber battle at the same time, and they do that a few times over after this, right? Because you see it.
That's true. Yeah,
you see it happening in. Well, 9 certainly tries to use that blueprint. I would say Episode 1 uses it.
It does. Yep.
Episode 3 is just a battle from start to finish. So I think that's kind of its own thing. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely in a league of its own as far as wrapping things up and the character development portion. Some people are kind of take it or leave it on the Ewoks, but I'm a fan. So,
yeah, I think I like it. It's a nice little whimsy layer of just
yeah,
fun in the mix of a dark tale in some ways, right? So,
for sure. Now, this is where things may get dicey because
yeah,
so as far as the rest of these go, like I say, oh, I'm conflicted, like Rogue One, S or A tier. Not that conflicted, but like with these, at least with 7 and 8, I kind of have a hard time of where I'm going to put them. I'm pretty confident of where nine's going, but for
let me
seven and
ask you
eight,
this: are any of them above C?
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I am interested. I'm curious now. I know which one is
So
not.
yeah, so for 7, I'm pretty confident it's a B for
Okay.
just throw it on and watch it. It's a good movie.
Yeah, that's
It's
fair.
shot very well, like practical sets and everything. The action is good. The acting is good. Harrison
Yeah.
Ford steals the show. Adam Driver is excellent as Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of mystery in who Rey is. Like things have not went south yet. Um, it's essentially a knockoff of A New Hope, which I have an
It is.
A.
Yeah.
So I have no reason not to have it at B, just as a standalone episode. Now, when you throw the
Mm.
sequel as a whole, there's a lot of storytelling issues that don't resolve anything. So that's, if we were ranking it based on how the story unfolded, it would be a C probably. But just throwing it on TV
Yeah.
like it's on TBS or something, I usually always stop at The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Honestly, I was probably going to give it a C, but I think you've convinced me of a B.
Okay.
Because I do think I have an unfair view of it if I come off this looking at it in terms of the big picture of Star Wars. Because that was one of the
Yeah.
things we talked about is it doesn't connect and fit in with the overall story. But
Anywhere.
if you just sit down and watch it, like the character introductions are pretty good. They're pretty well done throughout the movie. Like you said, Han Solo is amazing in this movie. You get a pretty interesting new villain, who might be a little too edgy for some people, which I get. He's a
Yeah.
bit he's a bit on that
Kind
side,
of
but
emo.
I think I would just as sitting down and watching it. I can settle with a B, because I think in and of itself, by itself, without the rest of the movies, it feels better to watch.
And
So you convinced
remember,
me.
B is average, right?
Yeah,
Like an average movie. It's
right.
certainly an average movie. Like
Yeah, I'll give you that.
just for, I mean, when it came out in theaters too, like it did over $1 billion. I
Yeah,
mean, it pulled a lot of people in,
and
and
I
so
enjoyed seeing it
people
in
kept going
theaters.
back.
Yeah, I think I saw it twice in theaters.
I only
I
saw
think
this one once in theaters.
I think it's the
Yeah,
only sequel movie I saw twice in theaters.
I saw 9 twice,
Did you?
but seeing 9 a second time, we were in Illinois over Christmas and it was like super cold and there was nothing to do. So
No.
we went
Let's
went to
go
the
see
movie
it.
theater. Yeah, like we got
Fair.
popcorn and watched it. If nothing else, I'll go eat popcorn for about anything. So
Yep.
eight is where I'm kind of torn because after our last watch through, I kind of enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
especially like kind of talking through all the ways it connected. But leaving the theater that night after 2 years of build up, I wasn't like, I didn't hate it, but I also was like, I don't know that I liked that either. And I had never
Yeah.
experienced that in theaters for a Star Wars movie before, where I was like, I don't know if I liked that. So the more I've watched it, I've read the book, making all the connections, it's aged pretty well on me over the last, how many years has it been now? 7 years or something like that since it came out?
Yeah.
6 years? It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I'm torn. What do you think?
I feel like I like it better now after we went through it from our perspective of how does it connect to the movies. I'm learning not to hate the Luke Skywalker thing as much.
Yeah.
I'm finding ways where that doesn't hurt my soul as much. Um, but if I take it with the same approach as I did Force Awakens, I would say it's like a B in terms of, I can connect it to all these other things and how it fits in. But I'd have to give it a C just by itself, because parts of that movie, I'm just
Yeah.
like, why are we here? What are we doing? I love Poe's arc, right? If we're just looking at the story in and of itself, like not connecting it to other movies, I love Poe's arc. I think he has a really good story in this. Rey doesn't do a whole lot in this movie. Kylo Ren's pretty interesting. Luke is fairly misused. I get where he's at and why he's there, but it's still not super compelling to me. And so I gotta sit it at a C. If I'm connecting it to the rest of the Star Wars stuff, I have a higher appreciation for some of those things, but just by itself, it's a little bit frustrating at times.
I can agree with that, especially like I'd never seen this interview before. I posted it on YouTube the other day, but it was like where Mark Hamill is saying, we're trying to figure out how we should do this movie, and I told Ryan Johnson like, oh, we should really be careful of what the fans are expecting because we have to give them what they want. And like
I
Ryan
saw that.
Johnson's
Yeah,
exact quote was like, no, we need to give them what we want and make them like it or something like
it
that.
was
And
something
to
like that.
me,
Yeah,
that's the most like absurd, arrogant thing to prove that he didn't understand Star Wars at all. This was more about him than it was about this story. And for that reason, I would go see. That just really irked me hearing that statement.
yeah. I do think it was a movie that went out of its, like. I have no issues with upending things that are what you expect or what you're used to, but it felt like a movie that went out of its way to do some of those things just to make a point. And at that
Yeah.
point, it's like, well, I mean, let's go back and at least carry over some stuff in a way that makes sense. I think the plot and the narrative could have been fine with just some different choices made. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree.
Well,
I,
it's
I
just
think
kind
it
of
was
beating it
it
into
was
the
his
ground.
movie.
Yeah. So 9 for me is pretty easy. I don't like 9 like at all. I think the fact that you have
Uh,
to go to the comics, you have to go to the novels, you have to just you can't even show the deleted scenes. It's the only Star Wars movie we have no deleted scenes for because
hmm,
it is such a mess and they had to
yeah,
explain everything away. The portions of the Mandalorian and the Bad Batch and stuff like that are trying to explain what they threw in episode 9. So like it's
yeah,
just a cluster and I just don't understand how we got to that point. But it's not good.
agreed. I know some people like this one better than the Last Jedi. That's fine. I understand why. But for me, like when we sat down to watch these movies, this was the only one where I sat there and just was like, I'm not enjoying this. Like I'm not, like, I was focused on trying to get the story out of it and what we were doing, but man,
Yeah.
it wasn't fun to sit there and watch it. And if I'm not gonna sit there and watch a movie and feel like it's fun, I can't. Yeah, so it's a solid D for me.
Yeah, that's the
um,
same for me. And so with this though, I will say as goes most things, the book's actually not bad. Like
yeah,
you get way into Kylo Ren and Rey's minds and it's pretty interesting. It actually explains a lot of the stuff that we don't get on screen that make it so bad on
yeah,
screen. But I mean the pacing is just terrible. There's like
yeah,
you throw in little things like the group of force sensitive stormtroopers or whatever, like Jana and that whole little group, and it may be Lando's daughter, but maybe not. Like, why do you even throw all that in when you're trying to wrap up Luke Skywalker's story, Anakin Skywalker's story? I don't.
yeah.
Made
Yeah, and
no
I don't
sense.
I don't feel like there's a whole lot of purpose in anything that's happening in probably the first 2/3 of the movie. It's just something happens and then they go somewhere and something happens. Like it doesn't feel like it's
Yeah,
going anywhere for a long time. Um,
yeah.
we talked about it last week. There are some things that I appreciate about the movie and things about the characters or its connection to other movies and about the Force and all that I like. And there's like some good points in it. But just sitting down and watching it, I can't. I don't have a whole lot good to say about that experience.
Yeah.
So
I will say there's no such thing as a bad third act in Star Wars. You look at our S tier, incredible third acts. I mean, I would say the third act in Revenge of the Sith is probably like Obi-Wan going to Padme, right? Like that would be roundabouts, or when they watch the footage. Empire obviously is when Luke goes to Bespin. Return of the Jedi is when Luke goes with Vader. Like that starts the third act for each of those, and they just fly by. Episode 1, I mean, once they go to the Gungans the second time, then Rogue One, once they're on the Scarif, A New Hope, they're on the Death Star. You can go all the way through these. Battle of Geonosis, Starkiller Base. Solos, I guess, is where they go to Kessel, right? Would that be how that one is?
I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
I haven't either. To me, Solo like did go a little bit long, where it was like it should have ended, but then they go back again to where like Kiara is and that Dryden Voss. That was a little much. But The Last Jedi, when they get to Crate, like when what's her name, Holdo flies the ship through the thing and they escape. I think it's pretty interesting after that. And even The Rise of Skywalker, like when Poe gives that speech and then they go to Exegol, like it feels good. It feels like Star Wars when they're doing that. So if you're just going third acts, I love every bit of it, but it's acts 1 and 2 that can really doom a movie if we're doing our rankings.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I think if you look, I mean, just me looking at how we've ranked these, like to me, the big difference is like the pacing, the continuity of the rest of the movie. Like, what are your characters doing and why are they doing it? And does it make sense for the bigger picture? And I think the ones that are higher up, they just throughout the entirety of the movie, they're just consistent in that. So that makes sense. I like that.
I don't think our rankings are like out of the ordinary. I feel like if you just go find an average Star Wars fan, it would probably look somewhat similar to this, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think we're special in any shape, form, or fashion, but I do like that my top 3 favorite movies are all S tier, so that's cool.
Yeah, that does work out. Now, if anybody had these rankings flipped, again, that would be interesting. So,
what are your top? Like, if you
I want to know who these people are.
Yeah, so if you were ranking 1 through 9, what would you give it?
Cool.
Is that too much to throw on you?
No, hang on. 1, Return of the Jedi. That's at the top.
Okay.
For sure. 2, I'm going to give to Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
3 is Empire. 4 is A New Hope. Phantom Menace. Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
It's kind of a tie between 7 and 8. I'm not sure which order to put them in because 1 I like more for its story connections and 1 I like more to just sit and watch. But it definitely puts 9 at the bottom. There's no question about that.
Do you have 9 below Solo?
Oh, are we doing all of them or just 1 through 9?
I was counting Rogue One and Solo as well.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, so to put them back in, Rogue One would be... Okay, so Return of the Jedi. Okay, so it might be Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, then Rogue One, then Empire, actually, which feels weird to say, but I think that's how I feel about it. Yeah, man, feels slightly blasphemous. Then I would go with A New Hope, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. Yeah,
7, 8,
so
9.
7, 8, and then Solo, and then 9.
Then 9. Okay. So for
Solo
me,
is not a movie I've ever just been like, oh, I want to go back and watch this. I just don't feel that way about it.
I think I've only watched it twice, maybe 3 times ever.
So I feel like it's got to be at the bottom.
Yeah. So I would go, and this is new because it was Empire, but I'd go Return of the Jedi, then Empire, then Revenge of the Sith. So I would go 6, 5, 3. Then I would go A New Hope. I would go Rogue. I'm essentially going in the tier list here. Then I would go. See, this one is where I'm like, I guess I would go Episode 1. Then I would go The Force Awakens. I would go Attack of the Clones, The Last Jedi. So I'm going right in order. Then I would actually flip Solo, and I would flip Rise of Skywalker. Even though I think Solo's a better movie than The Rise of Skywalker, I will still watch the Skywalker saga before Solo, because Solo to me is just nothing that I need.
Yeah, that's fair. I was
essentially
surprised
whatever we just did.
I was surprised though that you had Did you have a sequel movie before? No, that was A New Hope. Never mind.
Yeah, I didn't. I considered The Force Awakens above Attack of the Clones. And honestly,
that's what I was surprised about right there. That's what it was.
I would put The Force Awakens ahead of Attack of the Clones, because like, if we're going in story, as far as the story goes, Attack of the Clones is better. But like, if I'm just sitting down and watching it, I'm going to watch The Force Awakens all day over that one.
That's a good point. Yeah, because once it's been a while, I forget how much I hate those Anakin Padme moments. So
Attack of the Clones is rough.
Yeah, you might be selling me on flipping those too.
That would be it. I don't know. My rankings on this change all the time, though. So that's why I kind of like the tiers, because you can have it in a tier and it's still like not have to do with your ranking.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. Any last words on ranking of the movies?
No, I mean, if you want to hear our expanded thoughts, we just went through all 9 of the main ones pretty extensively. So
yeah, you can listen to us for about 7 hours talk about all those movies. So
I don't know that I would want to listen to me for
it, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do it, but you can if you want to. Yeah. So moving forward to the next week, we are going to rank our Star Wars TV shows. So that would be The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Andor, Kenobi. Is that all the live action? Have I missed a live action?
I think that's the live action ones. Boba Fett. Book of Boba Fett.
Did miss one. Book of Boba Fett. I just think Mandalorian when I think of that. So Book of Boba Fett, then Rebels, and the Clone Wars. Now, I have not seen Resistance at all, so I don't think we should include something we haven't watched.
I haven't seen it either, so I've seen pieces of it, but I just never felt compelled to watch it in its entirety.
Okay. And then Young Jedi Adventures, I've never really seen that either, so I'm not going to touch on that.
Are we doing like the shorter anthology stuff, like Visions or Tales of the Jedi? Or are we just doing like proper TV show seasons?
No, let's throw those in as well. Tales of the Jedi and Visions is for sure Tales. Oh, and the Bad Batch.
Bad Batch.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
We'll throw all those in.
Once you name them all, there's quite a few.
And tier ranking those will be healthier than a 1 through like 11 or however so many there are.
Yeah. I do think it'll be harder though to rank
than the movies for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see. That'll be interesting.
Well, that'll be fun. So everyone, thanks for watching and hanging out with us. It was fun to rank these. Fun to have a shorter episode again. That was cool. So next week it'll be the TV shows. So be sure to join us. Otherwise, thanks so much and we'll see y'all next time.